Hi, I'm Dr. Cox, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about motivation. One of the challenges we have as we kind of continue our journey for health is often we have to do things that either stop doing certain habits or start doing other habits that are good for us. But there's a reason we're currently not doing those habits. And that's often because we tell ourselves that we're just not motivated. I hear people all the time say that I know I should quit smoking or I know I should do this, but I find that I don't have the motivation to do that. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about motivation. And is there ways we can do things that will help us be motivated to actually accomplish those things we set out to do? So it's one thing to know what we need to do. It's another thing to execute on what we need to do. And what causes us to go from knowing to execution is really motivation. Now, motivation is kind of defined as the psychological forces that cause us to take action. It's a general willingness to do something. Now, sometimes it's really the pain of not doing something becomes greater than the pain of doing it. But really, to be motivated, it doesn't necessarily have to equate to pain. And I think that's real important for us to understand because if you do this right, there's things you can do to make this enjoyable. So first, there's two types of motivation. There's extrinsic motivation, and that's motivation from the outside. So a desire to get a new piece of clothing or fit into some type of new clothing, or your paycheck is an external motivator. These are kind of external systems that are rewarding you for doing certain things. But then there's intrinsic motivation, and that's motivation that comes from within. So you see people that are kind of the hobbyists, the hobbies that they do, they're intrinsically motivated to do it. They find joy in it. They don't have external things. They're not getting paid to do it. So intrinsic motivation comes within. Then involved in motivation is something called self-motivation. What that means is you really take ownership. So you're not relying on the external world to create a system for you that you're going to do whatever hobby or habit or whatever thing it is you need to accomplish. That you're going to use internal things to do that, the kind of the things you find joy in that's going to drive you to be motivated to do whatever it is you're trying to do. Now, when we're talking about motivation and the things you're trying to do, what we're really talking about is habits. We're trying to either stop certain habits that we know are bad or develop good habits. But for whatever reason, we currently don't do those things. And so we're trying to find that desire. How do I create a desire that's pleasant, that's going to allow me to accomplish those things? So you really need to dig deep to understand self-motivation. And the first thing you need to do is you need to understand your why. When you want to do something or stop doing something, how does it tie back to you personally? And what I mean by that is, what's your why? So when you say you want to lose weight, well, why do you want to lose weight? And as you dig deeper and deeper internally, you'll learn that the why may be because you really want to play in the park with your grandchildren and you're worried that your current health is not going to get you there. So it's important that you really understand your why. Now today, we're not going to do a deep dive into understanding or finding your why. We have other podcasts that you can look at that we do a deeper dive. But the important thing is you've got to tie it back to your why. So one of the examples they use is a young boy meets a wise man and says, "What's the secret to success?" And the wise man says, "If you want to know the secret to success, let's go down to the river." And they go down the river. And the boy says, "Okay, what's the secret to success?" And the wise man says, "Let's walk out in the river." So they proceed to walk out in the river to the point that basically the river water is up to their nose. Then the wise man grabs the boy and holds him down under the water. The young man's now is fighting, trying to breathe. Suddenly the wise man brings him up and says, "What are you fighting for?" And the young boy says, "Air." And the wise man says, "That's the secret. As soon as you want success as much as you want air, then you'll get it." And what's important to understand is we don't have to be to the point of death or almost dying to understand our why. If we actually take time and think about it and reflect, you can determine really kind of what's your deep, passionate why, and how does that tie back into your habits and the things you want in life. Next thing you need to do, you need to have clearly defined goals. It's one thing to say, "I want to lose weight," but it's another thing to say, "I want to lose 10 pounds." And the more you can define your goals and the clarity of those goals, the more motivated you're going to be. It helps you see kind of how that fits into the bigger picture. So I want to lose 10 pounds so that I can play in the park with my grandchildren without getting short of breath. So it's real important that you set clear goals because you also need to have a very clear vision. One of the things that often happens is people often have tried multiple times to change whatever behavior there is or to adopt whatever behavior they're wanting without success, and they failed, and they start to tell themselves, I'm just not destined, or I just can't do it. And so they start to tell themselves that internal story that I'm just a failure here. And you've got to change that. You've got to visualize what it is you're trying to get and what does it look like when you get it. So that instead of thinking of the negative, you're thinking of the positive. So instead of thinking about, oh, I really can't lose weight or I can't stop smoking, you need to start focusing on what's the vision look like when you are able to do that, and put that in your mind so your mind is knowing what it is that it's trying to get to. Next thing is in line with this is you got to keep it positive. One of the ways you can do that is both internally, but you can also surround yourself with positive people. This is a real challenge for you. So you may have friends in your life that really are dragging you down. Okay, they aren't helping you. So it's important that when you're trying to adopt some behaviors or stop some behaviors, that you're surrounded by positive people in a positive environment. So let's say you're trying to exercise more. Well, having a friend at the gym is going to help you exercise more because you have like-minded people and you can support each other. Another thing you need to do is you got to manage your time. I hear all the time is I just don't have time. It's too much time to do this. And the reality of it is we all have the same amount of time. It's just how we manage that time. Now, one of the things you can do is you can build rituals. So if you say, I'm going to work out, then one of the things you can do is set a time. I'm going to work out every day at 5 a.m. And if you do that over and over and over again, you take away that mental fatigue, the decision-making fatigue, and it just becomes easier and easier. And what's important along the lines is your perception is it becomes easier. The amount of energy you're still doing is the exact same, but your perception is it's getting easier and easier. That's because you're converting this into just a habit. You're removing that mental fatigue of having to make a decision. Because if you just get up in the morning and say, today I'm going to exercise, but haven't really identified what time that's going to happen, then you're creating this mental fatigue picture where you're more likely not going to be able to do it. But if you say your shoes out the night before and say, first thing in the morning at 5 a.m., I'm going to get up, first thing I'm doing is exercising, and you do that every day, you're building those rituals, those habits that become secondary to you. So it's important that we understand that motivation is like a muscle and it can get fatigued. So we need to do things to help support it so we aren't always relying on motivation. And one of those things that we can do is building habits and rituals that reduce the desire or the need to rely on motivation. And then one final thing that I'd recommend you do is basically create an accomplishment log. One of the challenges I have is when I'm desired to do something and set a goal, I find that when I get close to that goal, I then move the goalpost, and I really never stop and celebrate that I've accomplished my goal. Because when I accomplish a goal, I often want to go on to the next, to set a new goal and go on. And so it's okay to pause and celebrate the wins. I think that's extremely important to take time and say, hey, when I'm going to exercise, I'm going to do a treadmill for 45 minutes. Okay. Well, at 43 minutes, you'll say, oh, you know what, I'm going to do 55 minutes. No, stop at 45 minutes, get off the treadmill and say, man, I did it today. I set a goal and I accomplished it, and really bask in the wins. And one of the ways you can do that is creating a log so that when you're feeling down and you're not feeling like you're being successful, you can go back and look at this log and say, look, actually, I am being successful. There's multiple things that I'm doing that's leading to my success. So these are just some things you can do to help motivate you. If you'd like to learn more, feel free to reach out to us and let's see how we can help you. Thank you.